One of the key elements for a work of fiction to stay in our memory are its characters. And if we are talking about iconic characters in the video game industry, Sans is unsurprisingly one of the first that comes to mind. Sans is one of the main characters in Undertale, and also one of the first you encounter during your adventure, with a very particular entrance. But as everybody knows, he's also one of the most beloved and valued characters, not just in Undertale or the indie game scene, but rather gaming in general, even becoming a part of pop culture. In my opinion, he is the best written character in Undertale. So, in this video, I'm going to tell you his full story as it deserves to be told, and we are going to go through the evolution Sans experienced over time. But of course, since Undertale is a game with several roots, I gotta say I will mostly focus on the two main ones, the Geno and the Pacifist, starting from the same base, which is the shared beginning between both paths that are so different. As many of you may know, we can't really pinpoint Sans' origin with absolute certainty. At the end of the day, most conclusions we can make are just hypotheses based on a few clues and hints. If you will allow me, I will share a theory that I think fits quite well. At one point, Sans was a scientist. He wasn't alone. He partnered up with Alphys and W.D. Gaster, who could have been his father, master, or friend. But that's not quite the catch here. Thing is, they were working in the core, a giant machine that would power the entire underground. But at some point, Gaster fell into it and was literally erased from existence, with his essence being divided across space and time. Thus, Sans would desperately try to turn back the clock. He wanted some kind of machine to recover Gaster, and in fact, he might have succeeded. But as you might imagine, that machine broke down, and Sans never found a solution, leaving his friend lost in nothingness, only appearing at certain moments due to errors in reality, as a simple echo of what he once was. Sans managed to keep some sort of consciousness, if you will, about the timelines. Maybe because he was able to travel through time in one occasion, or maybe due to his studies regarding time travel. Either way, Sans starts the story being aware of what timeline he is in, as knowing we, the player, can reset it at will. Despite having lost Big Gaster, Sans has bonds with other characters, such as his brother, Papyrus, a very cheerful and innocent guy, or Toriel, a motherly cow who's the only one laughing at Sans' peculiar humor. Later on, after losing a child because of Asgore, she asks Sans to make a promise, which is that he will never harm any human, to which Sans agrees. Sometime later, a small one will arrive in the underground to change everything, whether for better or for worse. In the Pacifist Road, we see a much more carefree version of Sans. He lives in Snowdin with his little brother, and apparently he's quite well known in the village. The first encounter between Frisk and Sans gives us a sense of tension. At first, it might seem like Sans is just joking around, but we know it's not entirely like that. We know that while he's indeed a prankster, he also takes things seriously and hides his true intentions behind simple jokes. Yeah, that's one of Sans' roots, humor. All of his interactions are based on jokes so pitifully bad that they are genuinely funny. But as we all know, he has a dark side. What we see in the first encounter with Sans is, in some way, Sans analyzing what this newcomer is and isn't capable of. This is exactly why he spent loads of time near us, observing how we behave with his brother, thus taking advantage of the situation to learn more about us and our intentions. But of course, in this route, Sans quickly trusts Frisk because he realizes we are a good person, which also means Pacifist Sans isn't as important. Yes, he's a very cool and charismatic character, but he mostly appears in the first 2 hours of gameplay. He doesn't have much to do later on. Yes, we have to save all the monsters, including him, but he doesn't really do anything remarkable or that develops his character. Now, just because Sans isn't a key character in the Pacifist Road doesn't mean he's unimportant to the game, because there's also the... Unlike Pacifist Sans, the one we see during Geno Roads is much more alert, even as going as far to threaten us several times to stop us from going down the wrong path, before we regret it. And it makes some sense. We've ended the life of his best friend, who fully trusted us. We've killed his brother, someone he cared about deeply and wanted to protect. It was clear that Sans would be incredibly vengeful, resentful, and determined. When we've killed all the monsters in the underground and are heading towards Asgard, the supposed final boss, Sans will be waiting for us. But this time he won't let us go any further. He asks us if we believe that even the worst person can change, and if anyone can be a good person if they just try. This question is clearly aimed at Frisk, questioning whether there's still a glimmer of hope in their heart, and if they can still repent and try to be better than they were. Frisk moves forward. Sans warns the player that if they take one more step, they will be in for a bad time. Frisk moves forward again. Remembering the promise he made to Toriel, Sans laments and says that's why he doesn't make promises. This starts the best battle in the game, and possibly one of the most iconic in the entire industry. The fight against Sans is simply epic, but it needs context. The song playing in the background is called Megalomania, which sounds very similar to megalomania, a mental condition where a person has delusions of grandeur, ideas of power, doing whatever it takes to achieve their goals, no matter the consequences. Power, a key word in this route. The player has the ability to wipe out every last monster, not because they are good or bad, but rather because this outcome is available in the game, and to some, we must do it in order to not miss anything the game has to offer. In the end, we could say Megalomania doesn't belong to Sans, because it actually speaks about us, the player. In this fight, the roles are reversed. We no longer have the initial turn, which is typically given to us, the player, in all encounters. No, just these ones, first and last in the entire game. That position belongs to the enemy, Sans, who remains as charismatic as ever, then throws his strongest attack at us. After he's done, he reveals he always wondered why no one starts fights with all they've got. Here Sans is literally facing off against the devil. He is the weakest monster of all. He knows that one touch is enough for everything to be over, but because we are in the best fight in the game, he won't let himself get stomped that easily. This is the only battle in which our enemy dodges each and every one of our attacks, while explaining to us that he realized we, the player, have the ability to change timelines and jump between them, constantly reciting a story that has no end, repeating itself in an infinite loop. By this point, he's tired. He's lived through so many resets and timelines that nothing has value. Whatever he does, whatever ending he gets, everything will always repeat, and he won't remember anything, living in an endless loop of happy endings, bad endings, happy endings, bad endings. What's the point? That's why he decides to stand firm. He's going to stop us, the player, from continuing, and will do everything to prevent us from remaining in this endless loop. He will keep us in this place, defeated over and over again, until we simply don't want to play anymore. Sans tells us that before all of this, he hoped to be our friend. He thought the temporal anomaly happened because we weren't happy, and that once we got what we wanted, it would all stop. Maybe all we needed was good food, good love, and good friends. He was willing to give us all of that, but he realized it doesn't make sense, because we were the type of person who will never be happy. We will keep consuming timelines over and over until we quit the game. If in one of these attempts the player manages to tire Sans out, he will use his most powerful attack, not advancing the turn. That's right, the rascal literally stays AFK. Every time there's a transition in the battle, it means time is passing. It's not too far-fetched to say this fight could last over a full day, so it's clear that Sans will eventually get tired. Thus, the most charismatic and interesting monster of all finally loses to the player, who seizes the moment to attack him while he's asleep. In this way, the hero who tried to stop the villain of the story falls, hallucinating for the last time with his brother Papyrus, asking him if he needs anything. Sans is the best character in Undertale, and there's no doubt about that. His whole attitude is backed by the context in which he lives. He's also the most tragic character in Undertale, knowing that everything he does will be in vain by the end of the day. All he can do is shield himself with humor, just to make his sad and miserable existence a little more bearable, like just another pawn on a chessboard, with little power to change anything, yet still choosing to face his fate over and over again.